I just wanted to share a story I remembered during the break. In Singularity University, there's a guy called Dan Barry. He's an astronaut. He's like such a nice guy. He's an amazing academic, person, a professional. He has an amazing life story. And one of the best talks, I think the best talk in Singularity University over the 10 weeks. And they bring in a lot of cool people. So really the best talk is really special. It was by Dan Barry, and he shared a very personal story, and it's not online. You cannot find it anywhere. He's very clear about not recording it because he really opens up and talks about his personal failures. And this guy has 3 PhDs. Like he's been to space like 20 times. He's just really cool. And his obsession from when he was a really young kid was being an astronaut. And he talks about how he always wanted to be an astronaut and how he prepared so hard to be an astronaut. And then he applied to be an astronaut, and they said no. And he said, doesn't matter. And he talks about what he did for this year, and he applied again to be an astronaut. And they said no. Then he continued as he studied something else, applied, no. I'm going to make a long story short. He applied 17 times. I don't remember the exact number, but it was between 15 and 20. An amazing. It was once every year. So over 17 years, he applied, was rejected, applied, was rejected, applied, was rejected. After 10 years, they already knew him perfectly well. Like they, oh, this guy again applied, right? And like it's just such a fun story, and just his passion about being an astronaut did not let him stop wanting and continuing to try, and he ended up being an astronaut. And then he shows you the photos of him in space, and it's just really special and nice. And talking to Bruno, right? Talking to Bruno, he told the story about Cafu. Cafu, I think, also applied to 10 different football schools and got rejected, and at the end he was accepted. So that's also understanding a failure, not letting failures demotivate you, and always persistence is a critical characteristic of successful entrepreneurs and football players and astronauts and anything. Like just really pursuing your vision and doing what you want to do is such a big part of success. They're back. Perfect. So that said, I'm going to move into the second half of the talk. I'm going to share with you what I've done after government. I left government at the end of 2011. There was a change of minister. I said, not interested anymore, and I went out. And I was in an interesting position because I said, I don't want to be in government. I have no idea what I want to do. I thought of many different options, and specifically, there was during my time in government, I got to know a company called Patagonia Sur. And I was just really interested in what they were doing. It's an organization really, it's a group of different organizations, but it has several units that are for profit, but want to do an environmental impact. So it's how can the vision of Patagonia Sur is making a profit while taking care of the environment. So usually you make money and destroy the environment, or you get donations and take care of the environment. What Patagonia Sur does is try to find sustainable business models that allow to protect the land and at the same time create a profit. This is all about social innovation, social entrepreneurship. So this is, and I joined Patagonia Sur in September 2011, and shortly after they asked me to be general manager. So I've been in charge of Patagonia Sur for about 1.5 years now. So it's been a really interesting personal experience too, like leading a pretty big organization. So Patagonia is down there to the south of Puerto Montt, for those of you that know the south of Chile. And Patagonia Sur is actually sort of like an investment fund. It raised $23 million from individual investors in Chile, in the US, in Europe, all around the world. They invested in the organization because they believed in this vision. And Patagonia Sur acquired different ecosystems throughout Patagonia, over 23,000 hectares of some of the most unique and most valuable ecosystems in Patagonia. This is private land, so it's very fragmented, the ownership in this area, because inheritance and stuff like that. What Patagonia Sur did was buy many different pieces, like a puzzle, and consolidate complete ecosystems so that you can protect the whole environment. For example, all a river valley or a bay in the sea, stuff like that, that allow you to really be able to control the ecosystem. And once we have the ecosystem, we say, what can we do in this ecosystem? What kinds of for-profit and non-profit projects can we do in this ecosystem that will allow us to take care of it, conserve it, but at the same time make a profit? So there's a carbon offsets business unit, there's a real estate business unit, there's a scientific research center, a foundation, a conservation foundation, the Forest Patagonia, and one of the first things, of course, you can do when you have a big, beautiful property is tourism, right? So we have the Patagonia Sur Reserves. It's a very low density, very boutique tourism operation. We have lodges in several of our properties. And I'm just going to show photos. This is the sacrifices you must do when you work in a company like Patagonia Sur. You know, you have to check that everything's working well. And, yeah. So we have these yurts. They're like tents, Mongolian tents that are very luxurious, but at the same time have a very small environmental footprint. You don't have to create too much destruction to put them there. On the contrary, they interact very well with the local ecosystem. And we get to fly in helicopters, do rafting, ride horses, watch wildlife, more sacrifices of the job. You know, this is Merimoyo, one of our properties. It's just amazing. It's beneath a volcano. This is the glacier of the volcano. This is the house in Merimoyo. It's the old settlers' house that we renovated and adapted to be able to receive tourists. And it's only 6 rooms, so it's really low density, which allows us to make a profit, but at the same time not exploit the area too much. This is some of the wildlife that we see over there. Of course, fishing. In one of our properties we have 20 kilometers of river, so amazing fly fishing, and allows us to really protect the river and make sure people don't do destructive fishing. Then, so tourism is for profit. Now we have a non-profit organization, and Thiago said, I only do profit. That was not correct. Some organizations have a profit, some are non-profit, but the goal is to create an organization that complements through different interactions of these non-profit and for-profit institutions in order to achieve a social goal. We have a foundation that works with the communities in the villages near where we have properties. We work basically education programs and productive development programs in education. English education, which is not only important for the settlers, but also tourism is a huge industry in Patagonia. So understanding and learning English is a very important skill for them. And also sustainability education. We do recycling fairs with the school kids and things like that. And then we have a weavers cooperative. There's artisans that make weaving products, like gloves or hats or shoes made out of wool. And what we do is respecting their traditional methods, and it's very important to keep the culture of each place and the traditions of each place. We help them professionalize and increase their sales, so that we create more income in these very, very rural communities. Carbon offsets. Many areas in Patagonia look like this. Over the 20th century, the government gave land to people if they opened it up to have cattle, animals, crops. So what happened? People, the easiest way to open up land is just to light a fire. And if you light a fire and there's no reason, and you get, the more land you destroy or you clear up, the more land you get. This is a result. Over years and years, the fires just burnt and burnt, and there was no notion of the damage, ecological damage that was creating. So a lot of this is like very common in Patagonia. Actually, one of our properties has a lot of deforested area. So we said, what if we plant native trees in these areas? Those trees grow, absorb CO2, and we can sell carbon offsets in the global carbon markets. So that way we can restore the native forest, the native ecosystem, and at the same time make a profit. So that's what we started doing in 2009. This is the forestry team planting native trees. And it's really important to mention that it's native trees, not eucalyptus or pine trees, which grow faster. The faster it grows, the quicker you can sell the carbon offset. So economically, there's a very clear incentive of planting other kinds of trees. But here we, because of the mission of the company, we plant native species trees, which make less money, but are more valuable for the ecosystem. Of course, it's not only about recovering the fauna, the trees, also about the animals, the puma, the huemules, which are small little deer, the Magellanic woodpeckers. A lot of animals live in these forests and have lost their homes. And we work, whenever we can, we work with students and academic projects, including generating knowledge with these business units. These are students from Universidad de Chile doing their thesis, measuring the trees and monitoring the growth of the trees. We have different clients from Harvard Business School in the US, Land Rover in Chile. Every Land Rover in Chile is carbon neutral for the first year with trees in Patagonia Sur. And this is a video.
Alejandro was raised in Valle, California, in remote Chilean Patagonia. His great-grandparents were amongst the first settlers here. They made their living by raising cattle on land once covered by ancient beech tree forests. Now, Alejandro is working with Patagonia Sur to help plant millions of native species trees to recreate the dense forest his great-grandparents once knew.
Buena oportunidad para las personas de la comuna en general, porque hay una fuente de ingresos.
The project is made possible by the sale of carbon offsets. The Patagonia Sur Reforestation and Biodiversity Project is doing much more than simply planting trees. It is reversing the dangers of climate change and rebuilding the region's biodiversity. Climate change is a reality. Greenhouse gases emitted by our everyday actions cause this climate change. The sum of these greenhouse gases makes up our carbon footprint. Our combined footprints threaten to make the planet uninhabitable. This is our planet, and it is our responsibility to make a change. Deforestation is the second leading cause of climate change. Here in Patagonia, millions of hectares of ancient native forest were burned by the original settlers more than a century ago. They cleared the land to make their living raising cattle and cutting wood for fuel. Patagonia Sur is reversing this damage by reforesting millions of native species trees throughout Patagonia. The carbon dioxide absorbed by these trees is central to creating carbon offsets. The tree species we are replanting, coihue, lenga, and ñirre, are essential for biodiversity, and they also have an extremely high capacity to absorb carbon, which makes them important in the fight against climate change. Our planting is painstakingly done in a seemingly random fashion to best replicate a native forest. Yet, it is highly organized for carbon offset calculation. The environmental benefits go far beyond carbon absorption. Healthy trees decrease soil erosion, improve wildlife habitat, and strengthen native plant communities. And all the land we reforest will be permanently protected as part of Patagonia Sur's overall conservation commitment. The local communities benefit as well. We are creating long-term, reliable jobs, and locals are learning the importance of protecting their native ecosystem. Because of its vastness and consistent climate, Patagonia is a place where millions of trees can be planted. But what does planting a tree in remote Patagonia mean to you? The carbon footprint you create in your hometown impacts the world because your carbon joins the atmosphere where it affects us all. Similarly, a tree planted in Patagonia absorbs carbon from our shared atmosphere and therefore benefits you and your hometown. Our reforestation and biodiversity project is the first carbon offset project of its kind in Chile. We are working hard to set the standard for the highest quality, reliability, and measurable long-term positive impact. To ensure that our project meets or exceeds the highest international standards, we are acquiring BCS certification and are working with the Chilean Forestry Agency, or CONAF, as well as the Institución Forestal. We each must act now to stop climate change, first by reducing our impact and then by offsetting what's left. During 1 year, the average person in the United States creates 20 tons of carbon pollution. That same person could reverse their pollution for only 82 cents a day. Calculating your impact is easy, and correcting your impact is equally easy. Planting trees reverses the damage done, and it creates a beautiful, living legacy. Visit patagoniasur.com and offset some or all of your carbon footprint, and we'll all breathe a bit easier.
So another member of the Patagonia Sur family is a Merimoyo Ecosystem Research Institute. This is a scientific research institute focused on understanding the location of Merimoyo, which is one of our big properties, which is unique for many reasons ecologically. It's the place where the southern Valdivian forest, which is the kind of forest in the mid-center part of Chile, meets the northern subantarctic forest. So that basically what happens is that in Merimoyo area, a unique combination of flora and fauna is generated, and because it's such a remote location, there's very, very little knowledge about what this implies, the species that are here, and what are the problems they are facing, so we can protect them better. So we created this research institute. This is a Merimoyo glacier, the photo volcano. The photo of the glacier was up there. And one of the most beautiful things that happen in this location is that it's one of the global hotspots for blue whales. Blue whales are not only the biggest animal alive today in the planet, it's the biggest animal that has ever been in the planet, including dinosaurs. Everything is just huge. They measure over 30 meters. And just to use a random example, the size of the blue whale's heart is like a Mini Cooper. Just so you so they're that big. And they have a lot of food in the Merimoyo area, so they congregate here. The Darwin frog, which was found by Charles Darwin a couple centuries ago, is another endangered species that lives in this area. And one of the pioneering scientific research projects Mary is doing is together with the University of Cornell in the United States, putting 6 passive acoustic buoys, which are these yellow things, inside the ocean. Basically, we drop them into the sea, they go to the bottom, and stay there for 6 months recording. And these record the whale songs as they interact and they swim around here. And that basically will helps us understand how many there are, where they are, how long they stay in each place, the migration patterns. So understanding their interaction and their location, of course, helps us protect them better. So this is a blue whale. Suddenly appear when you're going around. And a couple of months ago, we got the buoys back from the bottom of the ocean and opened them up to see what was inside, all the recordings. We sent them to the University of Cornell, a laboratory of oceanography, and they connected them to the computers. They put play, and they were just blown away. It was amazing. It was as if it were a choir, a song of many blue whales, different kinds of whales, just constantly singing. And they said, "This is impossible. This never happens like this. It must be a very specific time." They changed the time and put play again and again, like a choir. And it was just amazing, the results that have been generated in terms of recording the songs of the blue whales here. And actually, they made a discovery that there's different species of blue whales around the world, and each species has its own whale song dialect, so to say. And we discovered that there's a unique species of blue whales in Patagonia. So we, for the first time, discovered the Patagonian blue whales, which have there's 6 different songs, whale song types, and now there's 7. And this is a blue whale song. Patagonian.